You're listening to Live Wild Radio, the part-time adventure podcast.
Join us as we explore how outdoor adventures build mind, body, and spirit.
And welcome back to Live Wild Radio. Tonight is a night of firsts. This is the first one that we're actually recording. We don't know whether we'll, or video recording. No, we don't know whether we'll actually put it on the YouTube channel. But some people like to watch their podcasts. And
so who are you?
I'm Winston.
I'm Catherine. Hi.
I've been doing this for over a year now. Everybody knows the voice.
You assume.
Well, I'm going from the thing that it says Catherine Gerhardt and Winston Endall.
Yeah. And
I don't sound like a Catherine. So this week's episode, or this bi-weekly episode, what are we covering?
Yeah, Adirondacks. We love it. So excited to talk about one of our favorite places, really. Yeah, the Adirondacks essentially is located at the border of Canada all the way down to...
almost Albany. In New
Albany,
York.
yeah. So that how many acres is that?
6 million, give or take, a little bit over. But what's cool with it is it was formed back in the late 1800s, like 1885.
1892.
What you run into is one of the largest protected wilderness areas in North America. And it's like the second largest in the U.S. besides like something in Alaska. And you can make Alaska all protected because nobody needs it.
Yeah.
And so it's actually bigger than, like, you take the 5 most popular national parks and it's bigger than all of them combined. Mm-hmm.
And one of them being the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
To get perspective, because that's pretty freaking huge.
Well, it seems huge, but it's actually not that big. Like, as far as sheer miles and everything go.
Yeah, that's true. It's just getting around it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love with the Dacks is you've got this, big wild area, but it's accessible. For us, while Google tells us it's 6.5 hours, it usually takes us about 7.5 or 8, with stops and pee breaks and gas stops and everything.
Yeah.
And we're coming from about an hour west of Toronto in Canada.
Right. But for Canadians, it's worth the drive because outside of the distance to the destination, the affordability, if you're backcountry camping, is inexpensive.
Yeah, but to get to any mountains, otherwise we're hopping on a plane in Canada.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, yes, it's a bit of a drive. But if you think of things like Lake Superior National Park here in Ontario, it's way closer than that.
Yeah.
Sleeping Giant and everything.
It's further than Algonquin. So for people in Ontario, particularly, that's a big destination.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've become a bit of a backcountry snob because of the Adirondacks and actually a lot of the places in the U.S., like Pennsylvania as well.
Yeah. Because
you know what? There's so much infrastructure of a trail network and campsites, backcountry and front country. But backcountry, they don't charge you anything in the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
And so, number one, that's that. Number two, because there's so much supply of locations, and we have a hammock system camping, right? You just need 2 trees. It's not difficult to find availability, so you don't have to book.
Yeah. Well,
and choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Like when you think about it from the standpoint, say any of our parks, like you got to book way in advance. They're not really and quite honestly, Ontario parks are set up for canoeing. Like they're not backpacker friendly.
Yeah.
For as big as they are, they don't have a lot of trails.
Not even the Bruce Trail has the ability to allow you to,
camp overnight.
Unless you stealth camp.
Yeah. Well, we don't endorse that. If you do, you do you. But if you think of it from the the Lacoche Silhouette Trail in Killarney, right? Mm-hmm. That's sort of a big Ontario backpacking trail. Mm-hmm. It's an 80K loop.
Yeah,
and you got to book it and book your campsites. 80K, which sort of sounds like 80K, which is sort of the short form for Adirondacks.
Yeah.
Is nothing down there. Like they've got thousands of kilometers of trails.
Yeah. So despite being so large and so majestic with the mountains there, it's really user friendly. to the, new backpacker, new hiker, etc., and families.
Well, yeah, like other than the terrain and the high peaks.
Sure. But the idea of not having to plan, like if you want to have that adventure, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can spontaneously decide, next weekend, oh, wait, we've got 4 days. We want to go down. You can go do it. And you're not running into the thing of not even peak season.
Yeah.
Not running into the thing of, oh, I can't book a campsite or any of that kind of thing for the backcountry.
Yeah.
Now campsites, like actual campgrounds where you pay for a campsite next to somebody else, that's a different story. They do fill up, and they have a bunch of those down there.
But they have plenty. Well, I shouldn't say that.
You've never stayed at one, have you?
You know what? But I will say around long weekends, because it's usually when I go, so I won't say the American holidays, that even front camping, car camping, right, that's free, is available, like right near Adirondack Lodge, which is one of the Mecca trailheads.
Yeah. Now the only thing to bear in mind with that, most people who are used to car camping at paid sites might not find, like, say, the free camping down South Meadows Road,
right,
that attractive. Right.
But if you're looking for just a clearing that's good for a tent, a couple of them, and a fire pit, there's
no fire pits.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a place to park your car.
Yeah.
You're good, and it's free.
Yeah.
Which we often use, if we arrive, like sometimes we'll leave in the night, right after work. So we land at one of those spots and then we take off in the morning.
Yeah. But so we're going to kind of break this down into kind of like the tourist side of things, like whether it's, car camping, so for day hikes and that kind of thing, then backcountry hiking, rock climbing, canoeing, and then the winter side of it, because there's so much down there.
Yeah, we pretty much prefer to go down there in the summer, fall and winter, just because those are really the best times. The fall is just spectacular. The spring, it's just so wetty. It's just so wet. You've got the melt going on as well, and so it just makes hiking conditions much more slippery and a pain in the butt, really.
Yeah, well, and it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah.
A lot of streams you can't cross because they're flooded.
Yeah.
And so there's about a 6-week window from like the beginning of April till maybe mid-May. And it varies a little bit each year depending on how much snow they had and, the temperatures and everything, that I don't recommend anybody go down. At least for backcountry hiking, because it's just a mess.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's not accessible. They call it the mud season. If you check the trail reports, which, we'll put a link to the particularly the high peaks, because we're interchangeably, we talk about the Adirondacks and we talk about the high peaks. The high peaks are a smaller area within Adirondack State Park where all the highest mountains are. But like in Adirondack State Park, there's hundreds, if not thousands of mountains, but there's like 46 big ones over 4,000 feet.
Right.
So those are like the official, if you get them all, you get the sticker. And that's the thing. You can be a 46er. There's like
either for the summer or the winter.
Yeah. But, because we do most of our trips in the backcountry, because that's kind of like what we like to do, because we tend to only car camp if we're rock climbing.
That's right.
Otherwise we're hiking into the backcountry with all our gear, and, that's what we like to do.
Yeah.
But, some people like to day hike. So whether you want to camp, there are campgrounds, if you want to stay at a hostel, there's a bunch of hostels. Are there? Where? In what parts of the Adirondacks? Keene, up near Cascade. Okay. There's a hostel right along there. I think there's a hostel in Lake Placid. I think, Yeah. So there's a bunch of like actual like hiker hostels. Yeah. Where you might share a bunk room with people, or, it's cheap. Like $25 a night or something like that. And then you have your luxurious ski resorts, because this is ski country and it's home to the Olympics from 1932, 1980. Yeah.
So think if you're a Canadian and from Ontario, think Niagara on the Lake, but ski country, like you're in, like the Alps. That's what it looks like down the main drag
of Lake Placid.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what you run into is this giant wilderness area, but there are some like little towns in it. Right. So you have things like Lake Placid, which is a major tourist destination. Right. Mirror Lake, which is, it's called Lake Placid, but Mirror Lake is the name of the lake it's on. And it's all surrounded by mountains, so it's beautiful. It looks like a Swiss ski town kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Freaking cold water.
Yeah. Saranac Lake, which is, just a few miles down the road. Basically, it's a lot of boats and canoeing and, smaller hikes because you're sort of on the edge of the high peaks.
Yeah, they have what's called the Sixers. Yeah. And what are they? Mountains over what height?
There's no height. They just picked 6 so they could get in the game.
Would you say they were relatively easy?
Well, comparatively, yeah. We hiked Mount Baker this past weekend.
Right. So we had to climb snowshoe 800 feet, which is a perfect amount for young children.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done something like that called Mount Joe in or Adirondack, near Adirondack Lodge, which was great. Like when they go to the summit and you're quite a ways up.
Yeah, you get a nice view.
The kids are like, wow, I climbed that. Like it's almost unbelievable. So we did something similarly this weekend, snowshoeing, and I definitely want to take the kids back. I know it'll be harder than obviously what they did for Mount Joe, but it'll be pretty epic.
Yeah, and it's basically to give you an idea, like we gained 800 feet of elevation on that particular hike, which is not a big deal, but say to go from the trailhead to the top of Mount Marcy, which is the highest mountain in New York, that's a 3,500 foot elevation gain.
Yeah.
To go up Algonquin is about a 3,000, and that's the second highest mountain in New York. That's a 3,000 foot elevation gain. So we're talking, substantially bigger and harder. Yeah.
So Mount Marcy, as far as visiting Adirondacks, I really went down there in 2016. And I remember that you guys went down. There's a group of you to do Mount Marcy in May, I think. And I was a little bit envious and jealous. I wanted to go. And then I knew that was my first summer, separating from my ex. And so it was what I called my eat, pray, love summer holiday. I had a week. And I remember calling you up and saying, hey, I want to go out west. And I was going to go along the St. Lawrence River. And you're like, well, what do you...
East.
Out east. And so I asked you, about some tips. And you're like, well, what do you want? I said, I want scenery. He's like, well, why don't you go southeast, right? So you convinced me to go to Adirondacks, and you said to do Mount Marcy, and I told you to fuck off because, what the fuck why are you giving me bad advice? And you're like, no, you can do it, despite the fact that it's the tallest mountain in New York State. So you broke it down for me, and so my point here is that it can be done.
Because Catherine was woefully out of shape when she did it the first time.
Oh, geez. I was 40 pounds heavier. What is that, 230? Maybe 220 or whatever. I was, terrible shape. My knees were terrible. I had taken the wilderness camping trip with you, so I had some gear. Shoes were probably not the greatest. I had poles. But nonetheless, you broke it down to me. You said time is your friend when you do this. So just to explain the conditions, they have a campground right on site. The trailhead's right at Adirondack Lodge. It's a great visitor center. And camping there, I think, is actually about $40 a night. It's actually, I think, expensive in the U.S. It's nothing really special. It's just convenient. But they have a lodge, and I actually did stay at the lodge, and that was about $50-$60, but it included a dinner. So I stayed there with the plan to be there for about 2 days. 2 nights. And I think I started at 7 a.m. and finished at 8 p.m. So a 13-hour trip there and back, 21 kilometers.
Yep.
8 liters of water. Because that caused me a lot of trouble later on in the middle of the night, having to get up 3 times, and I couldn't walk. And I was texting you like, oh my God, what do I do?
Have you taken ibuprofen yet? And you're like, no. Well, do it.
Yeah, that was brutal.
And it's funny because now I'd be saying, have you rubbed CBD oil on it yet?
Yeah.
And taken some CBD drops?
Yeah.
That seems to be the anti-inflammatory that doesn't rot your stomach.
That's right.
Look how things have progressed
in just a short time.
Yeah.
A couple couple years ago. Anyway, but this Mount Marcy is an epic. If you're looking for an epic hike to do, a day hike, because you can't camp on the mountain. Well, there is a backcountry campsite called Marcy Dam. It's about 5 kilometers in, and that's pretty cool. Actually, I would recommend that. In fact, I also took my children there the year after, I believe, just to stay backcountry. And there's a couple. It's a launch to a bunch of other hikes that you can do. You know, you can base camp there and do a bunch, or you can through hike. But it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's a slog of a hike. There's boulders, nothing that you have to climb over, but some you know you're in between boulders, and if you can get really good at walking on them, you definitely want your hiking poles. But it's the kind of thing that you want to be bringing water filtration systems, whether it be purification tablets or filters, because you don't want to carry your water, and a lot of people do. You'll see people in sandals and flip-flops and a 250 ml bottle of water, and it's a long day, and it's not. And once you reach past, what do you call that when there's no more trees?
The tree line. The
tree line. The vegetation is very sparse. It's in fact very fragile. You don't want to step on it. You want to stay on the trail, but it's a spot there, and there's warning signs that even in the high of the peak of the summer, their weather systems could come in, and you might be shorts and a t-shirt on the down in the valley, but when you go up,
it could be snowing.
Yeah, so it can be quite dangerous, actually.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, we want to expose people to this beautiful area, but also prepare them, right? Because if you've never been in mountains before, it's not an area to take lightly. Like, it's kind of, on the one hand, we want to say you can do it, right?
Yeah.
But don't be stupid.
Shit, we've never done an episode on safety, have we?
No, not yet.
We should.
We've included safety in a whole bunch of them.
We have,
like the trip planning and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so there is a blog on our website. You'll find a ton of resources there about the Adirondacks itself, some routes, but also about the 10 hiking essentials. I would say number one, is a headlamp, because a lot of people, including ourselves, when we go climbing or hiking, we tend to come back in the dark, and you weren't expecting that wasn't the plan.
But if you got a headlamp, who cares?
Yeah, and we experienced actually this past weekend snowshoeing on a very small mountain, getting how easy it is to get disoriented. So, definitely a headlamp. Anyways, there's a list there. But, it's the kind of thing that when you go on these day hikes, you definitely want to carry the 10 essentials in your backpack. Be ready that, you might have to, if you have to stay the night, it's not going to be comfortable, but at least you're not going to get hypothermia, because you were saying before, one of the most dangerous times hiking or being out in the elements is around 0 degrees and it's raining.
Yeah, it's below, it's above freezing, so it's still raining, but it's cold. Like, cold and raining is more dangerous than snowing, or like snowing, below 0. Because first, if it's below 0, it's cold out, so you've got the clothes for it, right? But let's say it's like 17 degrees and sunny. Well, that's shorts weather, right? If it's not windy.
Yeah.
And the weather can turn on a dime, and now it's 6 degrees and pouring rain, and the wind is picked up.
Yeah, and things are slippery, and you've got a slog of a hike back.
But if you don't have the clothes put on, you're going to get hypothermia.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can die.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shelter. What are you going to do?
And that's why, like, even if you're on a day hike, right, and you're like, oh, we're not going out very far or whatever, it's like, develop a habit that you always take the 10 essentials with you, right? Headlamp, food, water, and with that, I always put water purification. Yeah. Right. So
and redundancy.
You can process more water.
Yeah.
Then, insulated clothing and protection. So, like,
and not cotton.
Yes. Basically synthetic or wool, and then some sort of rain cover. You want a shelter, right? So you basically a small tarp or space blanket, right? So you can protect yourself from the elements. Then you want sun protection, right? Because you can get fucked up from the sun too. So if it's super bright out for long periods of time, sunglasses, a hat, sunscreen. People don't think of that, a lot of times. But, if you get sunblind, like especially say if you're out in the snow and you get snow blind, well, if you can't see, how are you finding your ass home?
Yeah.
First aid kit, knives and tools, and a bit of duct tape as a
navigation,
repair gear.
map, compass,
GPS,
extra batteries.
And
Is on there letting people know where you're going?
that's not on the essentials list. No,
That's key though. That's one of the biggest things too.
yeah, and
you can do it by signing a registry, but letting a friend know.
Yeah, where you're going, right? So
when you're
people
expected back,
and when you'll check in.
Yeah.
And I nowadays add an 11th essential, which is a satellite emergency communicator, right? A Spot, a Garmin InReach device. There's no reason now, with the technology that exists, for you not to have one. So if you get in trouble, you hit the SOS button.
Right.
Right. Because not only does it make you safer, but it reduces the risk to any rangers or search and rescue that have to come looking for you because they know where you are.
Right.
And it makes it safer for anybody else that gets hurt or lost or what have you.
Totally.
Because now they aren't waiting hours and hours because there's only so many search and rescue people.
That's right. We actually interviewed Scott Van Leer, an 80K ranger, just this past weekend, and that'll be our next. This is part of a 2-part series on the Adirondacks, and then from a ranger's perspective. And you have to take your safety
in your own hands.
In your own hands. You cannot expect that there's folks out there because guess what? They don't work past 5. They're not supposed to. They're always on call. I mean, they always do get called in, but they are so understaffed.
Yeah, but the thing is, if there's a call out at night, it's hard for them to get out to you.
Right. So my point was those Spot or InReach satellite communicators are definitely worthwhile.
Yeah. Worth
the investment for your safety in a place that you can die. And people die every year.
Yeah.
Like they have 100 incidents, search and rescues every year. I don't know how many deaths, so we didn't talk about that.
We wanted to keep it an upbeat episode.
We did.
But the thing is that, it is a wild area, and it's what we love about it. And it's wild but accessible. And I think part of what we run into too, because it was an area that was developed, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, what you run into is you don't get these kind of like newer trails that are all switchbacked up mountains. Like it's the path of, I don't want to say least resistance because going straight up a mountain is a lot of resistance. But when they were making the trails, it was the most direct route, right? They didn't, switch back them and make them accessible and more easy. Like, if you go out west, a lot of trails, like when we Mary Jo Falls, when we hiked to,
oh God,
like on Mount Charleston, that
was like, how can I explain it? Short of it having cement and that somebody in a wheelchair could be pushed up, it felt like, and this is high end tourism mecca. This is not that. This is a rugged trail.
Yeah, boulder, like the trails are strewn with boulders.
Yeah.
Exposed rock faces, like you're sometimes crawling up slabs. We will.
Yeah, you're no longer hiking; you're rock climbing.
And so that's something to bear in mind. Like research any of the routes you're going to do. There are moderate routes there, because all this stuff is in the high peaks. Yeah, but there's like Adirondack Trail books, the Adirondack Trail map. Look on all trails, right? Because it grades,
Oh, yeah.
alltrails.com. You can look for routes in that area, and it sort of grades the trails, like the route from, mild, moderate or difficult.
And actually, we've got a great blog all about some of our favorite routes. And you've broken it down from easy to moderate to more strenuous. Yeah. And so we actually linked to, we have a page in All Trails for LiveWild Radio, but we linked at the actual trail maps. And it's a really great app if you're not familiar with it, because not only can you zoom in and out and see the features of the route, but you can look at it it'll tell you what the elevation is, where on the route. So if you want to get to that granular bit of planning, it has all the hiking or the lean-tos or the camp locations noted. Great resource. Yeah. So...
and what's nice with it is a website, but you can put the app on your phone, download the maps, and they work when you have no cell phone connection.
Right. I think you have to pay for that.
Yes.
That's part of the subscription.
That's part of the pro.
Yeah. Which is about, I don't know, $30-$20 a year. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
And you can use it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Because it's user contributed routes.
Yes.
So you run into the thing where I've seen routes like all over Canada, all over the US, Europe, when I'm just sort of browsing through it, like when I check areas that we go into a lot, whether it's the Dacks, the White Mountains in New Hampshire, looking down in, Utah and Vegas, like it's just packed.
Yeah. Another resource I really like is on Facebook. It's called Adirondack Backcountry Hikers. If you want to get inspired by their photographs and what they did or know what the conditions are, it's super live. It's I'm not even sure how many members on there, but it's pretty busy. So that's a nice spot. And then if you're concerned about safety, and just as you do a lot of the reading of the search and rescue reports, it teaches you what not to do, because they often write what caused the incident. I don't know. We should have asked Scott, but I think some of the most common, I would think, because it's happened to us, sometimes we'll come right at dusk. We're like, wow, we should have had our headlamp, or I'm glad I had my headlamp. Yeah. But I can imagine, and I'd love to see some kind of a post at the trailheads, like at all of the major ones, with the 10 essentials, really emphasizing like these are the key things. If there's one or two things that you should have on you,
but it's not one or two. You need all 10.
You do, but at least you can haul your ass. Like if the weather's good and you're just stuck in the dark, But
yeah, like but it's always one of those things. It's like, but then it could be middle of day, so you don't need the headlamp, but the weather hits.
Yeah.
Right. Or you bonk, like you run out of energy, so you needed the food, or you get dehydrated, so you needed the water.
Yeah.
So or you did get stuck out overnight because somebody got injured, so you needed the first aid kit and the shelter and a way to make a fire.
Yeah.
So,
or you got lost because you weren't paying attention to the trail markers.
And you didn't have your stuff for navigation. So they're all for the foreseeable issues that people can run into.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't feel like there's enough of a campaign out there for people who are new at it. I certainly didn't realize that until recently, until you wrote the article. There's a thing called the 10 hiking. There isn't enough awareness.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things where somebody like me that's been at it for so long, it's like...
Well, you've been doing it since how old?
Like 10. So
with your grandfather, but when you actually went on a trail,
18. No, well, because do we count like just overnight camping trips, like backpacking?
Yeah,
16.
Yeah. So and when did you go to the Adirondacks the first time? I know you drove there through there with your parents.
Yeah, and I got to hike my first time there when I was 18.
When you were 18.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because it like. Or maybe 17. Like it's one thing that was kind of interesting because my parents didn't know what to do with me. I didn't. I was independent and hot-headed. So I was into all these things, and they weren't interested at all. So literally, they would drop me off at the side of the road with my little backpack.
Yeah.
And we'll pick you up at dark.
Really?
And
right here.
Pardon?
Meet you here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just head off into the woods. Like, so my first, what was the first mountain I hiked?
Shit.
Like in the Dacks. I'm just thinking back. It's like so fucking long ago.
Couldn't have been anything too epic because you had to be back before dark. Of course, it was the summer, but still, I mean, your first.
Yeah, but remember, I was young and in shape. I almost like ran up stuff.
Gotcha.
Now I'm just sort of slow and steady. Yeah, I think it was like, because I think they dropped me off at the garden parking. I think it was like Big Slide because I remember scrambling up the Brothers.
Yeah.
I think that was the very first one I did.
Wow.
right?
And what was that like?
Oh, it's the coolest shit in the world, right?
Yeah.
You know, but it was like when I got to climb for the first time, right? The guys, you know, the older guys at the, Rattlesnake, actually it was Buffalo Crag, but said, hey kid, you want to try this? And like put a harness on me and let me top rope for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and that sort of started my apprenticeship and learning.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that these things that I'd fantasized about.
Yeah.
Right. Or I'd seen in, magazines or weird little snippets and, whatever, I was actually out doing.
Yeah.
So and it blew me away, like how rugged it was. But it was fun. Right. It was like a playground.
It feels like you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like a big kid. When I took my kids
Except for when we did Saddleback, then you were like a big baby.
Oh my God.
See, this is the second time we've teased Saddleback, so we'll get to that story in a little bit.
Yeah. But I took my kids there when they were the ages of, I'm going to say 6.
It was last year.
And
so
4.5 was last year. So 7. Yeah. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was
this
last
past
year.
summer.
No, last year.
Right. So 7 and 5.5. And it was their second backpacking trip because the first one was on the Bruce Trail in Tobermory. We did a little bit there. So I took them right to the Adirondacks with the idea that I eased them in because the Adirondacks has like a beach, has the car camping. You can, that place I talked about, you could car camp for free.
Yeah.
So we did that because it was more remote. It was kind of cool. And we went to the beach and we, did a lot of things in front country. Then we went back country for a couple of days. So I broke it up and it's about a 5K, 3.5 mile hike in where we base camped.
Yeah,
And we got to stay at a lean-to. And that was their first time. And they thought that was the shit. They just loved it. I was a bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of bears in that area. And so one of the big safety precautions or, things you have to consider is there's a certain barrel, a food barrel that you need to bring in because the others that the bears are just too smart. They've been able to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And what they do now is even that you're supposed to keep your barrel about 150 feet away from your campsite.
150 meters.
Meters, eh? And, get your food and then come back don't eat at your camp, eat somewhere else, maybe along the shoreline, whatever, but away and be done with it, right? But often what they'll do is a lot of people bring that to their camp and the bears know this. So they'll be around and then they'll scare the person off and eat all their food.
Yeah.
That's happened quite a few times. But there's a lot of bears there. And I do recall, because it was just the three of us, me and the two kids, and they're so young and you feel so exposed, even though you're in a tent, you're still exposed.
It's funny how just a little bit of nylon fabric makes people feel so secure.
I know. It's like what you don't see doesn't hurt you. But I invited people because these lean-tos, they're not yours once you claim them and you don't reserve them. You share them up to capacity. But nonetheless, a lot of people tend to move on. But we invited people to stay with us, so we felt a little bit more secure in case there were bears. And I did hear one in the middle of the night. I could hear it right behind me because I'm a light sleeper, and I could hear it sniff 3 times and then take off because there was nothing there. Mm-hmm. So I hoped. But, oh my God, if you want that experience of your kids feeling wild, great place to be.
Yeah, because that's what's great. It's Marcy Dam. It's an easy trail in.
Yeah.
And
there's a ranger there. Is it a ranger or a steward?
There's a caretaker there.
There's a caretaker there. So you do feel safe, like if you have questions and you'll see them around.
And they always make sure everybody's got their bear canisters and check to see if your route is stupid.
It's a great community, actually. It's an easy way to meet up with people and get to know people versus like Holden is another location with quite a few lean-tos.
Yeah.
Like how many lean-tos does Marcy Dam have and campsites? 8 lean-tos?
I think 6 lean-tos, but like 40 campsites.
Yeah. So a lot.
Yeah. So let's take a step back and just explain. Just like the Appalachian Trail, the Adirondack State Park in the backcountry has a lot of lean-tos, which are, think of like a log cabin with a flat wood floor that's missing one wall with a big overhang. So, even if it's raining, it's not going to come in. So a lot of times, if it's not peak bug season, you can just set up your sleeping pad, put your sleeping bag on it, and camp's made. right? Like the trip we just did in the Dacks, we, hiked in.
Yeah. Open year round.
Yeah. Snowshoed in, ended up cutting about a half mile of fresh trail in 3 feet of snow, which is, a lot of work. Took us like an hour and a half to go half a mile cutting fresh trail. But you get there and you've got a shelter already. And so you've got both regular campsites where you can set up your tent or hammock or whatever, but then you also have lean-tos dotted throughout the park. And if you get a trail map or All Trails, the app, it shows where the lean-tos are. And right here I've got I'll show it to the video. Woohoo! Trails of the Adirondack High Peaks, which is just one part of Adirondack State Park, where all the highest mountains are. That has, all the lean-tos and campsites marked. So when you hike into a place like Marcy Dam, there's a bunch of lean-tos, right? And so it's convenient. A bunch of campsites you can set up your tents in.
Yeah.
But what's nice with it is the access is very, very easy, because whether you hike in from the South Meadows parking, because there's a trail that comes in from the South Meadows trailhead, and there's a trail that comes into Marcy Dam from Adirondack Lodge. So 2 different trailheads, but they end up at the same spot.
Yeah.
And you're down in this valley, so there's a nice river running through.
Yes.
And wherever you look around you are these towering mountains, but it wasn't hard to get in there, right? So it's a great place to take kids, because you don't actually, if you don't want to, you don't have to take them up the big mountains.
Yeah. The hike in is very easy. Very easy. There's nothing difficult about it. Past that point, it gets more difficult and rugged.
Yeah, the further in you go, the harder it gets.
Yeah, and that's truly a nice jumping off point to the other mountains. I think within a kilometer, maybe 2, you have Wrights Peak, Phelps.
Well, the start of them. Yeah.
The start of the trailheads, right?
Like
you can go down to Avalanche Lake, and that area is really cool. That's actually quite an obstacle course.
Yeah. All
that
the
was fun. We did
along the shore.
Oh my God. Like I had never hiked up those ladders. Like that was very different for me. Kind of scary. At first.
A lot of the big boulders, what they did is they've got wooden ladders, bolted to them.
Right.
Right. So you can get over them.
Yeah. And the angle is just strange. It's just awkward with a backpack. So you feel, and you got your hiking poles too, and you don't want to lose those. But yeah, and you got hitch up Matildas. So basically wooden planks are
bolted in the side of the cliff. So you got a walkway.
Yeah. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Floating logs. We've got that on video because I thought you were going to fall in to the water.
Yeah, that's up at the pass between like Colden and Mount Gray.
Yeah. There's so much to see. There's a lot of waterfalls.
Yeah.
A lot of beautiful spots. And there's this one lean-to that's at 4,000 feet. It's supposed to like the best.
It's the best campsite. There's no lean-to up there.
Oh, it's a campsite.
Yeah. And it used to be there was multiple campsites there, but they're now going that you can only camp in the designated sites, no wild camping, just to preserve, keep the wear in just isolated areas.
Right.
And so that high campsite that's between Mount Haystack and Basin, which the rule in the Adirondacks is you can't camp above 4,000 feet except for in the winter. In the wintertime, when the snow's covering all the vegetation, they don't care.
Oh, really?
You're not going to do any damage to it.
Really?
Yeah.
But why would you want to camp at that height? Really, really cold?
Yeah, it's cold and windy.
So you wouldn't want to?
No, but nothing's stopping you, right? Because the whole reason you can't camp above that is because they don't want to damage the fragile vegetation. Right. But that camp is like 3,995 feet. So it's just under the 4,000, and it's in the tree line.
Yeah.
And I've stayed in that one a couple times. And it's nice because then if you want to like do a sunset or a sunrise hike.
Oh my God. That'd be fun.
You're only a mile from the top of Haystack.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not, that mile is a rugged mile.
Yeah.
But
I remember that.
It's not starting miles away.
Yeah.
Right. So you can, get up in the dark and with your headlamp.
Yeah.
And with that, you'd actually you might leave your camp set up, but you'd bring your backpack with your sleeping bag to wrap in it because it's cold as shit up there in the morning.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But it's such a beautiful area. And we're mostly talking about backcountry because that's what we're into. But like I said, if people just want to do day hikes, it's one of the most popular day hiking destinations, and they might be long day hikes. Like if you want to bag a mountain summit and back in a day, it can be a lot of work, when you're out there for a long time, but beautiful, beautiful hikes. And then there's a lot of smaller hikes, right? Things like what we did going up Baker. You can go up Mount Baxter.
Yeah, which may even take like a couple hours.
Yeah.
An hour and a half, whatever.
Hurricane Mountain, that's got a fire tower on top.
Yeah.
So once you get to the top, it's kind of an exposed summit. So even though it's not got a tree line, because the summit's exposed, you get amazing views from there, right? Without it being as big. And then, there are basically things like Noonmark Mountain, and like there's a ton of smaller ones.
What was really fun to do with the kids was Mount Whiteface in the Adirondack. You can actually drive up to the top. So what we did is we parked about a mile from the top and we hiked the rest. And for the little kids to do that was pretty epic because you're at 5,000 feet, I believe.
Yeah.
And
it's 49.
So it's like you did the summit without all the work.
Yeah.
But they got to see what that's like.
Yeah. And it gives you a great view of the high peaks off to the south, the other peaks, because it's the furthest north of them. And let's say you are, you want to kind of like in the wintertime, it's one of these destinations that's awesome because we went, backcountry camping in the winter and then, went snowshoeing. And obviously we snowshoed when we went camping. But Saranac Lake had an ice festival we checked out. Mm-hmm. There's like 4 or 5 ski resorts in the area, like Whiteface.
Yeah.
Like the Winter Olympics have been held there, right? Like that's the quality of their...
Yeah, and they still have all those attractions.
Like the ski jump and the luge track and the skating ovals.
Speed skating, yeah. And they also have... so Governor Cuomo's just invested $4 million because he's a lover of snowmobiling into the area. So there's like hundreds. It's a great destination for snowmobiling. There's ice fishing there too.
Yeah. They were out. We saw people out on the ponds and the lakes ice fishing.
Yeah.
So it obviously we come at it from a backcountry camping and rock climbing standpoint because that's what we enjoy doing.
Right.
But for people who, you ski, you snowboard, you like snowmobiling, ice fishing, like it's sort of countless. Like it really is like an outdoor mecca.
And then you can imagine there's a group called is it Friends of the Adirondacks or?
Well, that's one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're getting at.
And so there's a lot of programming in this area. So if you want to learn, like there are guide services for rock climbing, but for snowshoeing and backcountry, right, experiences, you can take that.
Yeah.
So
if you're not ready to take the jump on your own.
Yeah. That's definitely worthwhile. And I feel like there's a large community, especially on Facebook, where you can ask these questions.
Yeah.
And
ask us on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we put the guide there, but definitely reach out to us. I mean, we're there all the time. I thought it was great when I was out there. I'd see, especially women on their own. And, it can be really intimidating. Actually, just talking about it with you right now, I feel like I want to do like a solo thing there,
Because you can't stand me anymore.
Yeah. But no, it's a lot of fun. I love it. Like it's endless. Honestly, if we could move there, I'd say let's just pick up and go.
Yeah, well, and because that's the thing, and we haven't even talked about rock climbing. As a destination, if you're a climber, like it's a trad mecca.
Is.
Trad climbing is where you climb and place your own anchors as you go. There's no pre-drilled bolts. There's not really much sport climbing down there. Because it's public land or protected land. You can't be drilling bolts into the rocks. But when you have that many granite peaks, there's going to be a lot of exposed rock.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you just went to Keene Valley, right, you've got like Chapel Pond slab, the Emperor slab, you know, these are just big multi-pitch routes. But then you also run into the thing of just down the road, you got the Beer Walls. You've got the Chapel Pond Gully Cliff. Across the road, all the Washbowl Cliffs. Like, it's one of these things. Like, you've got where we camp down in Keene Valley. It's technically a little south of Keene Valley, but we call it the Climbers Camp. There's like 20 crags within walking distance.
Oh, it's great. And it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's free to camp. And
yeah, and you run into other, you know, climbers. A lot from Quebec.
And
Kitchener.
We seem to run into ones from Kitchener.
Like in the forest, or like, hey, Winston, you know.
Yeah. It's weird to be coming down off of a climb.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're cutting through the woods.
You're bushwhacking,
you know, to get back to a trail. And you hear somebody, hey, Winston, is that you? It's like, oh, hey.
7 hours away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then around our campfire, you know,
that was
people
hilarious.
said, it's like, oh, do you mind if we join you? Yeah. And of course, Catherine's all friendly, asking people, you know,
where are you from?
And they're like, oh, we're from, you probably haven't heard of it. It's like Kitchener. It's like,
and we should have just kept going on,
yeah,
like,
we were like,
saying,
they're big with Oktoberfest, right? And they're like, yeah.
You guys have a shitty gym, like,
yeah,
because we go to core.
You know,
I just had Grand River Rocks is awesome.
You know, but it was the thing. We played with them for a little. You know, it's like It's like, oh, where are you from? Cambridge. Like literally 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then we met Jesus guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was really cool. Christian. Yeah, and his dogs were so beautiful.
Yeah, the dogs were great. The guy was, by most estimations, you know,
interesting.
Yeah, like because he was lucid. He wasn't crazy.
No, he wasn't. He was purposely living. He has his own house, but he clearly likes living in the forest and in his car.
Yeah.
Short of living in his car, he just, that's the kind of life he wants.
Just driving around places that he can go and set up camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
With his dogs.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah.
It was and then they have the best outdoor shop. What's it called again?
The Mountaineer.
The Mountaineer.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to post that. Oh, it is just.
Yeah. Well, the thing.
Eye candy.
Yeah. Well, because if you rock climb anything you could ever want, right? Like, you know, for the climbers out there, like they have all the sizes of totem cams. You know, the serious climbers will know what I'm talking about. And they have all of the DMM cams, and they have all of the Black Diamond cams, and they have, you know, and it's
and they have a library. Like, this is not just rock climbing, this is everything.
Yeah, like, well, and that's the thing. They've got the rock climbing guidebooks for everywhere
around the world.
They have the height. Yeah, it's like
it's not just there.
You want Joshua Tree, Yosemite, like Smith Rocks, like this stuff all the way across the country.
Yeah.
But then, you know, do you want the hiking guidebooks? Do you want like
Everest, Annapurna?
Yeah, and they've got all these books about
everything.
Like all the stories too. Like it's
amazing. That's an amazing establishment.
Yeah. And then they've got all your normal like hiking gear
and clothing and like everything you need.
Yeah. You know, but the two that always blew me away was the climbing in the books.
Yeah.
Because it's the best selection of climbing gear I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then that you know, I don't really I'm not as big on like the storybooks.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm always like I love guidebooks, right? I love trail maps.
Yeah.
And they have them from all over. You know, so that's
very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have a garage.
Yeah. Just down the street where it's all the discount stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like we have to stop there every time now.
Yeah.
Just because.
You know. And you'll run into the thing. Lots of great places to eat.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite?
I really like the Baxter Mountain Tavern. It's like it's
cozy.
Partway up Baxter Mountain.
Yeah.
You know, inside they got the fireplace. The food's great.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. That whole area, like when we went there in the fall for the climbers camp.
Yeah.
And the weather was gorgeous. we always have so much fun there, and there's mountain coffee. So then, you kind of luxuriate a little bit because now you're not backcountry. So you're like, oh, let's go get our coffee.
Yeah.
Let's go be a hipster. Let's run into these people and, whatever. It's just, it's fun.
Yeah. And it's funny. Like if we're climbing, we're going to go out to eat more.
Yeah.
We'll go get our coffee in the morning because basically you're there to climb, right? So you don't. But
if you're at the climbers camp, more often than not, you can hang out with other people. Just bring some booze, and it's or get the campfire going, and they'll all want to join you.
Yeah,
which is cool.
And that's our strength. I'm very good at setting stuff on fire.
Yeah, which is funny because a lot of climbers are not really into the.
They're not as outdoorsy. They love the climbing, but a lot of those sort of basic outdoor skills.
But they bring great food because they bring everything.
Yeah, they're not thinking like dehydrated backpacker food like we do.
Yeah.
Right, because we've watched.
We pack light.
Everybody's making like stews and
It
stir fries.
takes like 3 hours to cook, but then when it smells so good, and they offer it because
And so it's like everybody's got kind of like a little different.
And what was that beer that we got to try? This porter stout or something?
Yeah, from like Plattsburgh.
Yeah, I have it in my Instagram.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The best beer I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
When we go, maybe next summer, we go climbing at Polka Moonshine. That's up Plattsburgh.
Yes.
Way.
That'd be fun.
We'll go climbing there because it's an awesome place to climb. I haven't been in years.
Yeah.
And then we'll get some good beer at the brewery.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Where else can you camp as a climber in that area? Like where there's other climbers.
That's really like the epicenter
best.
Of it.
Yeah.
Well, because there's so much climbing right in that valley.
Yeah.
Right. That you can just,
it's all there.
You park for the weekend or however long you're there.
It was really gorgeous.
To the climbing.
Yeah. The beer walls were great.
The beer walls are great. The slab is great. When we were coming down from Chapel Pond Slab, you could see the people on the Chapel Pond Gully Cliff.
Yes.
Through the trees there. Then,
And then Chapel Pond's got obviously it's got a pond, and at the right time of the year, it's great swimming. It's beautiful.
And on that trip, we didn't even cross the road.
I know.
Like you see all those cliffs across the road.
Yeah. And a great place to start, if you're going from the indoor gym and in Ontario, the most we have is 60, 70 foot cliffs. There you can do like a little bit more. You can do a couple pitches. Yeah. I'm thinking about my kids, for instance. Like that would be a nice, good next step.
Yeah.
Right at Chapel Pond Slab.
Yeah,
Sorry, not Slab, Chapel Pond.
You mean like Tillman's Rat and Shipman's Rat? Yeah. Like all those ones right at the pond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to get to. It's a beautiful view. Go for a swim after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're fun little climbs.
Yeah. Scary at first, but, if you've been out of, climbing, which I had been.
You were on top rope. I led it.
It's true.
Yeah. So if you look into it, so a couple of little guidance things. Basically, Adirondack State Park is a massive, like if you look on Google Maps, you see this giant chunk of green north of Albany and south of Montreal. That's the whole state park. The High Peaks region is sort of located between like Keene Valley and Lake Placid, kind of like with all the highest peaks. And that's where we tend to go, just because it's biggest and gnarliest, and, fun. But the whole park is covered in trails. So you can get much more moderate hikes. Like there's a through hiking trail called the Northville Placid Trail that runs from Northville, New York to Lake Placid. It sort of goes around the high peaks, but doesn't go through them. So you're not getting massive climbs or anything. It's not, it's not brutally rugged. So it's kind of a fun, it's like about 110 miles or something like that. So it's a good long, but the shuttle services you can get you park at one end.
Yeah.
And they'll take you and drop you off at the other end for a fee. So you just walk back to your car. So if you want kind of like a backpacking adventure that isn't.
Do you know if that runs well? Like is it limited to like 9 a.m. to 5, something stupid like that in the summer? Or does it
No,
actually
it's not
run?
like you book a shuttle and they take you.
You book it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
like it's not a shuttle bus.
that you meant a shuttle, because I'm thinking of the other shuttle bus around Keene Valley where we were.
Oh, just the trails.
Yeah. Because the issue is that there's not a lot of infrastructure for all the amounts of visitors that are coming into the park. Like, it's really grown exponentially, and so at one point people could park on the side of the road in Keene Valley to reach the trailheads. And what's happened is that over the years, is because it's such a narrow shoulder, people are eventually walking on the street and getting hit and killed. Yeah. So they no longer are able to park there. And so there's actual parking lots and people shuttle in and out, but a lot of people don't want to do that. But it's pretty hefty fine. What is it? $500?
Something like that.
Something ridiculous.
Yeah, because there's a 4-mile stretch from Chapel Pond all the way up to the town of Keene Valley that is no parking along the road. And there's plenty of like little trailhead car parking along it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if it's a busy weekend, it's full by 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about knowing the area well.
Yeah.
Because we know we can just pull into the climbers camp, which is right in the same area.
Nobody sees it. Nobody knows.
Yeah. even if you're not staying there, you just park there.
Oh, yeah, you totally can. We shouldn't talk about it. It's not on a map, is it?
No.
Good.
Yeah. You got to be in the know.
It's true.
Yeah. But that's the thing where what they have running now, if you can park at Marcy Field, which is just north of Keene Valley, they call it Marcy Field because there's a small airfield there. And in the summertime, or peak season, into the fall, they have a shuttle bus that runs from Marcy Field up to the garden parking. Because the garden parking fills, even though it's pay parking.
Yeah.
It fills. And then, you can't go in there. Well, the shuttle bus running back and forth, you can park at the other spot and it'll take it up.
Gotcha.
So there's some ways of working around. So if one area is too busy, there's other options.
Yeah, just keep in mind if you are going to do a day hike because of parking, and also, just being cautious, you do want to start early. Yeah. You're better off starting early in the morning, like 7 a.m.
Yeah, well, because quite honestly, you have no choice because you can't get a parking spot.
Yeah, because everybody else is doing the same.
Otherwise, do it midweek.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the whole deal. Everybody goes on the weekend.
It's true.
Like, we've been out there, because we've done longer trips.
Yeah.
And we're out there midweek.
Yeah.
And it's like, we have the whole place to ourselves.
Well, keep in mind, though, a third of the visitors are from Canada. So they're doing the same as well.
Yeah. But a lot of them aren't doing midweek, though. They're still doing weekends.
You're right. But the one thing that we didn't talk about that we should, another reason why I love the area so much is that I find, in comparison to Ontario, the minimal amount of bugs.
Yes.
Like, even in high season, hardly get bitten by a mosquito.
We don't really wear bug spray.
We don't worry about horseflies or any of that crap.
Yeah. And it's so funny because the locals will complain it's peak bug season.
Yeah.
And then we just giggle, go, you don't understand bugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, go hang out, middle Ontario, Muskoka, Algonquin, any of that kind of stuff.
Anytime before August.
And it's like your eyes are full of bugs and your nose is full of bugs.
Oh, fucking hate horseflies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess let's talk about winter, backcountry just a little bit, or even hiking or snowshoeing.
Okay.
If people, because it can be really daunting, especially with the mountains. So if somebody was getting into it, what should we recommend? I think what we did, which is maybe the Saranac Sixers or even Mount Joe. There are some more easier hikes.
Yeah, you don't even have to do a mountain, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Tons of, there's stuff around lakes. What you're most familiar with is a lot of gnarlier stuff because that's what I take you to.
Yeah.
This trip we did, went to Hurricane Mountain. Right?
Okay, let's back up. So we purposely kept it easy because of all the treatment I'd done on my knees. I had recently injured it just before Christmas. So it's taken me a couple months to get over that. So I didn't want to do anything too strenuous because in 2 months, in April, because we're end of February almost, we're going rock climbing. I don't want to screw that up. Mm-hmm. So we decided, okay, let's take it easy. Let's do Hurricane Mountain. Because what would have been that? What would that have been?
Like hurricane?
Elevation.
Another 1,000 feet on top of what we did.
Yeah. So the idea is that we came in that night or in that day, camped at the Saturday at the lean-to, which, ended up taking 3.5, 4 hours. Should have been 2.
Yeah.
but we got lost, and that was fun. Or what happened is, interestingly enough, this has never happened to me. We're setting off in the dark. I'm feeling comfortable about it. We've got our headlights. We've got our navigation. My Garmin InReach Explorer doesn't have the trails on it for some reason.
Yeah, so it's got all the elevations, but none of the things marking like trails or... And the map that we loaded showed that it did, so it was my fault for not checking it.
Yeah, but that's so weird. And that's never, ever happened, right? Because if anything, it's always had the trail. So, of course, all the other functions worked, but you walk up and we're following the trail markers, and we come to this pond. We're like, okay, this is clearly a pond or a field or something, but it's open area. Where's the trail marker? Not sure. Okay, well, let's check the Garmin. Not there. Holy shit. We got this new watch. It's the Garmin SX Phoenix, something like that.
Phoenix 6S.
6S. Great watch. Maps are there. Trails there. I'm like, okay. But
and then I've got my map and compass still. So
yeah, and we do. And we're comparing notes, right? But so we're going, and this is interesting. At this point, the trail we had been following that somebody else cleared for us stopped because they clearly turned back. They couldn't find the way to go. And it was interesting because where I thought they stopped and what would continue ahead would be like a big open space in the morning. Like when I looked at it, it was like there's trees right across.
Yeah,
like
you just couldn't see.
You couldn't see it. So it's like, wow, how disorienting that is, you know?
Yeah, you thought the space was a lot bigger than it was.
Yeah. And the trees were right there, which just goes to show you can't trust your judgment at night. You have to like consider where you came from, like, you know, what other factual information you do have.
Yeah, and it's like using your instruments, your compass,
yes.
your navigation tools, your GPS.
Yes.
You know, like, because that's the thing. It's the same thing. It's like, say it was in a snowstorm, right? A whiteout blizzard. Well, you can't see, right? So you take a bearing, you know, with your compass, or you take you plot a course with your GPS, and you move on that, and then you stop periodically and just check to see that you're keeping going on the right bearing to go where you need to go.
Yeah. So at this point, it's like 10. I guess it was around 8 o'clock, but it was cold. It was minus 17. We're getting cold now because we're not working as hard anymore.
Well, we're out in the open too.
We're out in the open. We were sweating, so you're no longer, drying off that sweat through your own body heat because you're cooler. But I'm guiding you along the tree line. So we're in the pond and we're breaking trail, and it's like 3 feet deep, and it's, we're taking turns, and it just kept going on forever. But we knew the lean-to was at the other end, and, it was as you turned, and it was just going to take some time.
Yeah.
But we're still trying to find a way. Is there a way? Like, we're still looking at the forest, the tree line. Is there an open trail? Like, is it somewhere around here? Because we were so close to the trail, but we were off, we were in the water. And then we decided at the end, we're like, wow, we might have to camp under a tree well or something, or in a tree well. Mm-hmm. And we thought, okay, fuck it, let's just bushwhack, which I hate. I really hate bushwhacking.
Yeah, but the thing is, there was we got to a point where you could actually see an opening in the trees.
A little bit, yeah. And then we're like, that looks like a trail. And of course, what I thought was hilarious is there's animal tracks, of course.
Down the actual hiking trail. Because
there's the path of least resistance. And of course, the animal tracks just led us right to the lean-to. It was right there. And then when I had to look for a shitter later on, it was, there you go. There's the tracks. So like, when all else fails, consider looking at animal tracks.
Yeah. So I
was so glad.
Yeah, when we found the lean-to.
Yeah, and I will say that I usually take winter camping trips much more seriously, and I did. I did have all my gear. Yeah. There's nothing I was forgetting, because I've had that happen a few times, or nothing that I deliberately did not bring. But I was cold, and it's because I wasn't used to I didn't follow the rules. Like, I left my base layer on, which is super tight. And I think even my wristwatch was on a little tight, that I just couldn't keep the warmth, and I was shivering.
What, as we were hiking?
No. I'm talking about when we were in our sleeping bag. I had too many layers on.
Yeah.
I really did. Because I'm like, how come my legs are like, usually they're the coldest things and they're warm, but my upper body's cold. And I didn't have the sleeping bag all cinched up because I didn't think it was that cold, and because it was warm, right? But then as you sit there, you're getting colder and colder, and you're like, what's going on? So I was like, okay, do I eat
but you didn't change
food?
into fresh, dry clothes, did you?
No, but neither did you.
But I didn't need to.
But my clothes didn't feel wet, but I guess they were still wet.
Yeah.
Right? Like I thought I was okay because I had been moving around a bit. And I'm like, okay, because we had a fire as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but because of all that, and I think the combination of being a little bit, there's a bit of stress there, right? I knew we'd be fine. It might be uncomfortable, but and it was fun. But I wasn't going, woohoo, this is fun. I was a little stressed.
That's what winter camp is supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
usually it's easier. Yeah, but I would say for me, I said to Winston, I don't feel like I don't have the feels to climb up that mountain tomorrow because in my mind, my hip flexor.
Was it already hurting?
It was hurting. That day it was hurting going up. And I kept trying to dig my pole into it to try and release
Because I saw you doing that the next day.
Did I?
Yeah. I didn't see you doing that.
Yeah, you're right. I did. So that would have been a bad idea. And that's why I didn't want to. Because the last thing I wanted was that to be going up a mountain, knowing I have to come right back down. It'd be a long day. And my hip flexor is hurting me, right? And then could that affect my knee? Because then I'm not walking properly. And then I knew we had to cut the trail. Plus, then we already know my Garmin's InReach Explorer is fucked. We can't really so we're looking at this little tiny screen on my watch, and what if we
That's what I have a map and compass for.
I know.
You're the gearhead. I don't have any of this stuff.
I know, but you didn't pull it out when we could have used it, because we were looking at my watch, right? But the point is,
I kept pulling my map out.
Well, you did, but as far as pulling out your actual compass and you didn't do that.
It was right on my backpack.
You were using it?
Yeah.
I didn't see you using it.
All I needed to do was point me in the right general direction.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't see that.
That's why I was able
You mean
to
your tiny compass?
That's all I needed.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw the layout of the lake we were on, or the pond.
Yeah.
It's it's over
long
there.
And narrow. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but you kept asking me, and then I was constantly looking to make sure we were on track because I could see the trail.
Because I wanted to
check.
Yeah, I until I looked closely, I based on what you were saying, I was assuming we were on the trail.
Right.
We weren't on the trail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So we'll have to figure out how to zoom.
Yeah.
Because it was hard to read even with my glasses.
Yeah, and it's hard to navigate and be the one cutting trail.
Right. Oh, for sure. So anyway, but long story short, that's the story behind it. And the next day we just got an Airbnb. But that kind of scared me. My hip flexor. I mean, I'm glad we did it. And the next day I slept a whole bunch. And then did we go out the next day for another hike?
Yeah. That's when we did Baker.
Right. Because so we went in Saturday night. Sunday we came back.
Yeah.
So we didn't do any more hiking after that.
No.
Right. So that day we rested.
Yeah.
I felt like such a wimp. And then the next day we went and did Baker.
Yeah.
And I was completely fine. My hip wasn't bugging me anymore. I think
you weren't carrying
a
pack up, and you weren't cutting trail.
No, that's probably why. It was a combination of those things. But
because our pack with the 10 essentials, I was carrying it.
Yeah, because how much was our pack? Probably 30 pounds.
Yours is way more than that.
I think it was 40?
No, it was probably 35.
35.
Yours was really heavy.
Was it?
Yeah.
It still felt light in comparison to other times.
Yeah. But I'm just talking picking it up.
Yeah. So anyway, interesting. So if people who want to try snowshoeing in the winter, what do we recommend? Doing Baxter?
Baxter's fine because it's right in Saranac Lake.
Yeah.
But there's tons of stuff there that's more moderate. There's tons around ponds and lakes and so you can see
flat.
mountains.
So it's flat. Yeah.
It's
and
flat
you can enjoy
easy.
that.
And a lot of them get some traffic, so they're already cut. Right? You're not hiking in fresh snow.
Yeah, but if you do want to do a small little mountain, I would recommend Baxter.
Yeah, or any of the Saranac 6.
Which is what it was. Yeah. I do recommend that. It's quite something.
They're more moderate.
Beautiful amounts of snow.
And then even say if you're staying in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of little trails.
Yeah.
Right in town. That sort of go start and end right in town, like a little loop.
Yeah.
We hiked one of them the other, in the summer. So you can hike that stuff in the winter.
Yeah.
You know, lots of snow and,
Yeah.
you know, you get some views and there's mountains all around, but you're not up in the mountains. You're not physically going quite as hard.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not getting in as remote a place.
Yeah.
So whether it's, you know, winter or summer, like it's an area that's got accessibility for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was very moderate, family friendly.
Yeah. And it was very easy, even during their high season, winter season, to find in a hotel.
Yeah.
You know?
So.
Yeah.
And then it was an American holiday, President's Weekend.
That's right.
And
so it just goes to show the availability is there.
Yeah. Because it's a tourist town. So there's, you know, it's a ski town and a tourist town in the summer.
Yeah.
So there's stuff. So yeah, we can't say enough about the Dacks. Just a couple of quick things, and I've got this in my article.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into the eastern high peaks where the highest of the mountains are, you have to have your food in a bear canister, and there's no campfires.
Yeah, that's pretty key.
You know, and so it kind of sucks in the winter because I would like to have a campfire.
Right, which is why on Hurricane Mountain we also went there, that we wanted a campfire. So we stayed out of the high peaks.
You know, so there are some areas where you're allowed to. The western high peaks you're allowed to.
But starting out, we don't recommend, and we have did a whole episode on winter camping.
Yeah.
You know, do it in stages.
Start in your backyard.
Yeah.
Until you figure out how you sleep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are just a couple of the little pointers. But yeah, like, you know, read, you know, our articles about it. You know, and check out the resources that we put with the show. We're also going to put the link to the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, their Adirondack information pages.
Yeah.
So they've got, one of the great things is that their trail conditions pages give you the trail conditions for all different areas.
Yeah.
And they're updated weekly, right? So you can see, you know, what the snow conditions are.
Because there are avalanche areas as well.
Yeah. But also in the summertime, like, you know, when the trails are dry enough to hike on, you know, so when you're planning out a trip, that helps.
But when you arrive, what you can also do if you want to speak to somebody in person is arrive at Adirondack Lodge. It's very accessible by car. You can go in there and talk to people about your plans, what you're thinking of doing. You know, it's an information center.
And then even like the Eastern Mountain Sports in Lake Placid has a daily updated board on trail conditions.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information. Like, you know, everybody wants to make it accessible to people because that's what they make their living off of. Like, nobody charges for you to go there. So it's all the auxiliary businesses, right, that want to make it as accessible as possible. Because if you're coming in and they're super friendly, right, hell, probably the people, you know, at Old Mountain Coffee, even though it's a coffee place, would probably give you feedback on what trail conditions are like.
Hey, did we talk about Foot Stuff?
Pardon?
Foot Stuff podcast?
You did mention it.
Did I? Okay, because who works at Mountain Coffee? Is that Matt?
Yeah.
No, you can say hi to Matt.
Yeah.
You can freak him out. You can creep him out.
Yeah, because we ran into. It's like, hey, you're from Foot Stuff podcast when we were getting coffee, and he was like a little, yeah.
Who are you?
And then when we were hiking up Avalanche Pass, we ran into Wade, who's one of the caretakers, who's also on that podcast.
Because there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two of them have public jobs, I guess.
Yes, they do.
The other 2 we didn't run into.
No. But so stay tuned for our next episode with the ADK Ranger on Twitter, Scott Van Leer, and hear some of what's a day in the life of a ranger and some of the epic search and rescues they have.
Yeah, and that's gonna be. There's some great stories in that. That episode. So stay tuned. But until next time,
I'm Catherine.
I'm Winston.
Live wild.
No, work hard, play dirty.
Oh my God.
I know.